All right, so now we're going to be working with volume. So let's read this word problem together. Logan is packing his collection of Rubik's Cubes in a box. The edges of each Rubik's Cube measures 2 inches. The dimensions of the box is 8 inches by 10 inches by 8 inches. What is the greatest number of Rubik's Cubes that will fit in one box? Okay, so there are several things going on here. So we know that we have these Rubik's Cubes. So this is your Rubik's Cube. And it would be, I believe it will be labeled on your paper, but it's not labeled on mine. And we know that the edges of each Rubik's Cube is 2 inches. Okay, now the box is measured by 10 inches right here, and 8 inches, and 8 inches. Okay, so we know the dimensions of our box. Now he wants to put these Rubik's Cubes, all of these, into this box. So this is going to be a volume problem because this takes up room. Volume is the amount of room it will take up in a figure. So we need to figure out how many Rubik's Cubes he can put in this box. So we got to figure out the volume of this Rubik's Cube and figure out the volume of this box, and then just divide it and see how much volume this can take with the so dividing it. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied here. So the volume of this box will tell us how many Rubik's Cubes that can fit in here. You'll see as we go through it. Okay, so they're asking us, what is the greatest number of Rubik's Cubes that will fit in one box? So before we go into that, we need to figure out the volumes of each box. So the volume formula is length for a rectangular prism. This is not the volume formula for every single figure. This is for a rectangular prism, which is what a Rubik's Cube is and a box is anyway. So it's length times width times height. Okay, so for us that's going to be 10 times 8 times 8. Okay, so 10 times 8 is 80 times 8 equals 640 inches cubed, and that's where we get the 3. Okay, I know in the surface area when I kept wanting to write 3, surface area is 2, volume is 3. So this is our volume for this box, this big guy right here, is 640 inches cubed. Okay, because we had to just multiply length times width times height. So our length, our width, and our height. That's all you're doing. You're just multiplying these 3 numbers. Okay, now we need to find the volume of our Rubik's Cube, which is 2 inches by 2 inches by 2 inches. So that's going to be easy. 2 times 2 is 4 times 2, that equals 8. So it's 8 inches cubed. Okay, so now that we figured out the volume for our box and figured out the volume for our Rubik's Cube, now they're asking what is the greatest number of Rubik's Cubes that will fit in one box, because we know that one Rubik's Cube can fit in here, but we want to know what's the greatest amount of Rubik's Cubes we can put in this one box. So now that we know the volume of this box and the volume of this Rubik's Cube, we know how much room this will take up in this box. So we need to know how many of these we can fit in here. So to do that, we need to divide. So we need to divide the volume of the box by the volume of the Rubik's Cube to figure out how many of these we can fit into this box. So we're just going to divide 640 by 8. And 8 goes into 6 0 times. Okay, 8 goes into 64 8 times. 8 times 8, 64. Bring down the 0, 8 goes into 0 0 times. So we know that we can fit 80 Rubik's Cubes in one box because it's volume. We're dealing with volume here. And remember, volume is the amount of, and volume is, sorry, the video had cut off. Volume is the amount of space inside of a solid figure. So amount of space in a solid figure. So we figured out, so we know what the volume, the amount of space in this box and the amount of space this takes up in for the Rubik's Cube. So that's why they wanted to know, to figure out how much space, how many of these we can fit into here, the amount of space it can take up in here. We have to divide how many, to divide the volume of this box by the volume of the Rubik's Cube and get, so we can figure out how many cubes can fit into one box, and it was 80. So if you don't understand that, rewind the video again and look at how we got this answer, okay? But this is the formula for volume for a rectangular prism. Remember, this is a volume for a rectangular prism, so I'm gonna write that down. Volume for rectangular prism. Okay? All right. Now, you need to find the volume of this prism. All right, so, and then we see fractions. So we're going to do like a mini review of fractions while we're going through volume, of multiplying fractions while we're going through volume. So again, the volume for rectangular prisms is length times width times height. Okay, so it's going to be 3 over 2 times 3 over 2 times 3 over 2. Or 3 halves, 3 times 3 halves times 3 halves. Okay, looking at these fractions, we already know these are improper fractions. But let's not deal with that right now. We'll deal with that once we get to the end of the, once we get our answer here. So we already know that since they are improper fractions though, we're going to get an answer that is an improper fraction. So we have 3 halves times 3 halves times 3 halves. And when you're multiplying fractions, it's the easiest thing. All you gotta do is just multiply across. So you're just gonna multiply all the numerators and multiply all the denominators, and that's how you'll get your numerator and your denominator. Okay, so let's do these two first. 3 halves times 3 halves. 3 times 3 equals 9 times 2 times 2 is 4. Then we got to do this one, which equals 9 times 3, which is 27, and 4 times 2 is 8. Or you could just do all the numbers together. 3 times 3 is 9, 9 times 3 is 27, 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, which is the answer that we got. Okay, so that is our volume, 27 inches cubed. However, it is not simplified. We need to simplify this. So this is going to be also a mini review of how we turn our improper fractions into a mixed number. Okay, so the easy way, or well, the way to turn an improper fraction into a mixed number is to simply just divide it. Okay, you would just divide 27 by 8. Okay, and the reason why that works is because I'm going to also show you this in picture form. So let's say we have, so I'm going to draw some circles here, and they're split into 8 because that's our denominator. That's how many we're going to have that would make one whole. Okay, so I drew out my circles here and I broke them apart into 8 parts. Now if I shade these in, because I'm going to shade in however many 8 can go into 27. So we know it can go in at least once, so that's 8. This would be 16. And this would be 24. So we have 24 pieces already shaded in, but it's 27, it's out of 27. So we still need to shade in 3 more. So we have 3 more here. So this piece would actually be 3 out of 8 pieces shaded in. But how many holes do we have? We have 3. So it is 3 3/8. So it's also the same thing when you're dividing. 8 goes into 27 how many times? 3. 8 times 3 is 24. 27 minus 24 is 3. So that's our remainder, and then that's going to be our denominator because that's how many it's going to be out of. So it's 3 is our numerator, 8th, or 3/8. So whatever method you want to use, if you want to draw it out, or if you want to just divide, but that's how you're going to get your mixed number, and that's our volume, 3 3/8 inches cubed.